You see, I've got my diploma here after finally earning my master's in English language and literature last year. Beautiful font, but maybe I'm not fluent in Elvish or conversant at all. I have no idea what it says. Presumably it says I'm a graduate of Signum University. You know, I'm pretty sure you're wondering, okay, why is this here at the beginning of a video on time tracking? Well, it's very simple because I probably wouldn't have this diploma if I didn't, intentionally track my time a year or so ago when I started working on my thesis. Today I want to talk about time tracking and why it has been so important in making myself feel more productive and just at peace with what I get done every single day of my life. Now, I'm not talking about time tracking for billing purposes. You see, that's something that I've done for well over a decade. When I started as an independent iOS development consultant, and I need to keep track of my hours so I could charge my clients. That's not what I'm talking about. Instead, what I'm talking about is time tracking just general parts of your life to see how you spend other areas of your time, not necessarily what you're working on. I first started to do this several years ago when I first hit a particularly rough spot in my life. You see, I was working full-time. I was also volunteering at Signum University while trying to earn my master's degree at Signum at the same time. I had at that point already 5 children. Yeah, I think number 5 was born at that point. Maybe only 4 or 5. Either way, lots of children. And I had a whole bunch of other things I wanted to work on. I want to learn German someday. That was something I was actively working on at that time. I'd kind of given it up for a little bit for now as I concentrate on other things, but I have so many ambitions and I wasn't making any forward momentum in them. Instead, I was putting in tons of hours every single day working and just going to bed exhausted and also miserable because I felt like I wasn't making any progress in the things that really mattered to me. And so I thought to myself, hey, I'm already tracking my time that I spend doing development work. Why not just extend that and track more? Just so I have an idea for myself of how I spend my time every single day. My thought process at the time was like, maybe I'm doing something that I'm not really aware of, okay? And like we talked about last time, awareness is the first part of the AIRR Flow. It's part of how you get this process of productivity going. So I jumped into it full force. Being my usual overzealous self, I decided I'm going to time track every single second of the day. And let me start off by saying my #1 tip for time tracking is don't time track every single second of the day. Only time track the things that are really important to you. I didn't know this at the time, so I time track my sleep. I time track my grogginess in the morning. I time track my morning routine. I time track my devotions, my exercise, and on and on and on throughout the day. And before 1 week was even over, I realized this was adding more stress, not alleviating the stress and giving me more peace of mind. So I axed that and started out in a pretty simple system, which is what I recommend you start out with. Instead of time tracking just every single moment of your day, instead choose maybe 3 to 5 really important overall areas of your life that you really care about. As I'm sitting here now, I only have 3 large categories that I track. That is my time spent working at Rescue Time, my employer, my time spent volunteering for Signum University, as well as my time spent making these YouTube videos. Those are the 3 core areas of time that I want to track. Beyond that, I have smaller one-offs or smaller projects that I want to work on, and then I have a couple of larger projects on pause that I'm not actively using at this point in time. Like I said, these timers are areas of your life that you really care about making forward progress in. Say, for instance, you want to learn a new instrument. Create a timer for that. That way you can track how much time you're spending on this goal that you've set out for yourself. When I first started out and I was time tracking every moment of the day, I had a special distracted timer. You see, my thought was, okay, I want to see how much time I'm distracted from doing the stuff that I want to be doing. And so anytime I go on Twitter and just, get distracted, I would retroactively switch the currently running timer over to distracted. My thought being, hey, okay, now I'll have at the end of the week an idea of how much time I spent being distracted. Well, you want to know what? That was a terrible idea. Because what I care about isn't, how much time am I spending being distracted? What I care about is how much time am I spending on the projects that I care about. And that's why I forget this nonsense about time tracking every single moment of the day. Instead, just focus on time tracking the things that are really important to you. That way, when you get to the end of the week and you look at the report of how you spent your time, you'll know, okay, this week I spent 36 hours working at Rescue Time. This week I spent 10 hours volunteering for Signum. This week I spent 15 hours working on YouTube videos. These are my examples. Or, hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll be able to say, this week I spent 7 hours practicing an instrument. That's what really matters. Like, who cares about this distracted time in this general form of time tracking. What we want to do is shift the focus away from the negative of the distraction and onto the positive of you accomplishing and working towards the goals you want to achieve. You see, last year I was just fed up with mowing the lawn. I was hating it, having to pull out the riding lawnmower every single day, just, tune it up, fix it. Let's not talk about fixing it. It was misery. Thank you, YouTube, for teaching me how to change the head gasket on a Craftsman riding lawnmower. But besides that, it was miserable. I knew I had to spend time mowing the lawn every single week, but I wasn't enjoying it. I felt like I was wasting so much time doing it, so I wanted to time track and figure out if I really was. Well, I did that, and I realized I was spending about 2 hours a week from April through October mowing the lawn. And so I seriously considered outsourcing mowing the lawn. Except we live a little bit outside of the city and I wouldn't know who would come do it. And it's quite a big lawn and I would still have the lawnmower maintenance and the gas and all that stuff. I didn't know what to do about that. It still didn't feel the right choice. Well, this year I started up the lawnmower and it died. Just died. So I needed to get a new one anyway. Well, I bought an electric push mower, and so far I'm spending the same exact time. If not, I'm actually spending a little bit more time, about half an hour more per week mowing the lawn, but I'm push mowing it. So I'm outside walking in the sunshine and I'm listening to audiobooks because I can now, because it's not a raging internal combustion engine. I'm just loving it. Okay, so maybe that doesn't have anything to do directly with time tracking, but the point is it was something that was bothering me and I chose to, hey, let's dig in on this and figure out if I am wasting, my precious life. My precious life. It's not just my precious life. Everyone's life is precious. But am I wasting the time that I have been given mowing the lawn, or if that's something I want to keep on doing? And I chose, I'm going to keep on doing it. I'm just going to change it up a bit to make it enjoyable for me, which ironically enough is done by making it go longer and with more physical effort. Going back to the AIRR Flow that we talked about last week, after running these timers for several months, I realized something. Not only were they good for giving me a general awareness of how I was spending my time and how I was moving forward or not on my goals, they were also helping me to be intentional. If you remember, was step 2 of the AIRR Flow. You see, before I was using timers, and admittedly for the first couple of weeks, I was, just doing something and then writing down how much time I spent on that later. However, once I started actively time tracking important parts of my life, I started doing that before I began the activity, and this really helped with my productivity. You see, instead of randomly sitting down and saying, okay, I guess I'm gonna work on my Signum thesis now and blah, blah. What's happening on Twitter? Did you see this? Ali Abdallah is offering a part-time YouTuber Academy course. I need to go check that out. Let's go do... No. Instead of doing that, I was now starting a timer before the session began. I said, okay, now I'm going to write my thesis. You starting that timer is just that little bit of external accountability. You're saying to yourself, okay, I'm doing this now. And the timer's running, so you should be doing that, right? Silly, but hey, it works. So far, I've been just suggesting you use generic timers, like I said, just large areas of work or projects or ambitions, goals, whatever that you want to move forward to. As I said, for me, those are Signum, Rescue Time, and YouTube. You can also take this a step further in the AIRR Flow, the refinement stage. I go through certain portions of my life where I'm realizing that I'm spending way too much time on something. I don't really understand what's happening with that. For the past several months, that was YouTube for me. So instead of having just one YouTube timer, I had 4 YouTube timers. I had one for YouTube script writing, I had one for YouTube recording, I had one for YouTube editing, and I had one for YouTube post-production and publishing. You see, I was brand new to YouTube and I didn't really know how I was going to spend my time. And so I wanted to figure out the best way to improve and speed up each part of that process. And so I needed to split up the whole YouTube time recording session so I could have good data to work with. I quickly realized that editing YouTube videos was taking me way more time than I expected from the beginning. I expected that it would take me like 1 or 2 hours per video. Let's just say I was wrong, okay? On that note, seeing as how I have all this data from what I time tracked, I am planning at the end of this year of releasing a retroflective on my year in YouTube and just sharing with you all the data of how I spent my time and how it broke down and the money I spent on the YouTube videos. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and look forward to that sometimes in, December or January. But now back to refinement. Okay, I do this all the time. Say at rescue time, I'm really feeling I'm not getting too productive, so instead of having just a generic rescue time timer, I will split that up into sub-timers. Say I have one for support tickets, I have one for the desktop app, I have one for the mobile app, and that way I have a better idea of what I'm spending my time on, and so I can rejuggle things if need be. In the same way, I was really curious at how long I would spend on my thesis, and so I decided to break that down and time track how long I spent on the initial writing, the editing, and all that stuff, and I'm not really sure if this video was coherent at all. I sure hope it was. Instead, I feel it's been more rambling, but I just want to talk about the key takeaways here for a moment, just to bring it all back together. Number one, start time tracking. It's really great. But when you do it, don't go overzealous like I did and start to track every moment of your day. Instead, create broad categories. But these categories should be things that you want to spend your time on. They shouldn't be stuff like sleeping in or watching Netflix. Unless those are things that you want to do, in which case that's fine, that's up to you. Just don't have a distracted timer, because who cares about how much time you spend distracted? What you really care about is how much time you spend doing the thing you were distracted from. Next up, instead of just using the timers to give you an awareness of how you spend your days, use them to be intentional in the moment. Say you're going to start your communication timer, then just sit down and bang through those emails as quickly as you can, and just that'll help you stay focused and disciplined on those. And then, for certain things, feel free to refine it, break it down to smaller categories like I did with YouTube. Or if there's just some random one-off thing that you're really curious about and just seeing if it's really taking over as much of your life as you think, track that. This is all about narrowing in on what's really inhibiting you. Okay, so this has been a bit of a rambly tour of why manual time tracking is important to me. I haven't gone into any specifics on how I do this. If so, tune in a couple of weeks when I talk about how I use Toggle to time track and the setups and all that fun technical stuff. This was just a brief overview, but next week we are going to be talking about automatic time tracking and how that fits into my workflow, and I'm excited because I finally get to talk about rescue time and how I use the application on a daily basis that I work on. So, till next time, bye. Finally, after, or at least I don't plan on doing anything with it so why is this here? Why do I have my diploma on my desk? I mean, isn't that what productivity is in general? Just what you spend your life on? Or being mindful of what you spend? I need to write this down.